Today, the heads of government and heads of state of the EU are meeting for Brexit. Curiously, the economically unimportant fishery is the crux of the negotiations. In the lengthy Brexit process, many supposedly final dates have come and gone. The same slogan issued by Prime Minister Boris Johnson at the beginning of September should be the same. If the Treaty on Future Economic Cooperation is not ready for signature by the EU summit that begins on Thursday, we will have to part without a deal. Our country will prosper in any case, said the conservative politician. Germany is holding the EU Council presidency at the moment, and the German Chancellor Angela Merkel put it more soberly. Unfortunately, one must also be prepared for the no deal. At Johnson's video conference with EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen on Wednesday, those involved echoed the latest optimistic tones from their chief negotiators David Frost and Michel Barnier. The desired free trade agreement is still possible, despite all skepticism on both sides of the English Channel. The French always mentioned the end of October at the date. Now the first week of November is being discussed. According to Downing Street, the critics should not have too much time until a treaty is ratified by the House of Commons on the one hand, and the EU Parliament and national representative bodies on the continent need that time too. Too much is at stake for both sides. The calls from industry, trade and tourism are becoming more and more urgent. Unite! Carolyn Fairbairn from the CBI Industry Association believes that a contract is therefore necessary so that there is dynamism in the future relationship. After all, after Great Britain has left the Internal Market and Customs Union, cooperation must continue in many other areas, such as the fight against crime and terrorism, data protection and common foreign policy interests. By the way, data protection is something that's often completely forgotten. I'm gonna have a very long video about this in the next days, so don't mind the length of the video, but it's a very complex but a very important issue, rarely talked about. Two important areas still appear to be unresolved at the moment still. The alignment of government aid for businesses in distress and the future division of the abundant fish stocks around the British Isles. There is mistrust of London on the continent, including on the future treatment of Northern Ireland. The fact that the Tory government wants to break the exit treaty and thus international law in the event of a no deal has sparked outrage in many places. And for all the Brexiteers still denying that even tabling the internal market bill was a breach of the withdrawal agreement and hence a breach of international law. That's a legal fact, and spinning headlines over the Commons all the time doesn't change those legal facts. That is internationally agreed already. At the beginning of the month, the EU Commission started a lawsuit against the former member. However, the responsible cabinet minister Michael Gove has signaled that the offensive clauses will be removed from the law currently being negotiated in the House of Lords if the deal comes. Curiously enough, the main obstacles to a compromise on the part of London are fishing. There are hardly any economic reasons for this. The sector only contributes 0.12% to the British gross domestic product. The remaining 8,000 professional fishermen are heavily dependent on trade with the continent. 70% of the 450,000 tons of fish they land annually are exported to the EU, either fresh or canned. And the other point is, just because there are more quotas for the British doesn't mean the British fishermen have more to do. Did you ever have a look where those quotas have been sold in the past? Do you think that would change with different quotas in the future? If it really came to a chaotic exit and dispute with the EU, the 15,000 workers in fish factories in Northern England would also be affected. They process imported plaice and cod, and most of their products are exported. But the fisherman's profession is anchored in the consciousness of the maritime nation. The BBC still broadcasts the daily weather report for seafaring around the island. For 3 minutes, millions of Britons, most of them landrats, dream out of their suburban row houses out to sea. Nigel Farage always knew how to play with this emotion. The national populist is now waiting for the chance to speak of betraying Brexit. A successor organisation to his Brexit party could endanger the Conservatives. Johnson's spokesman is happy to say that there will be no compromises after all. The British attitude is decisive for an independent country. The concerns of the environmentally conscious mingle with the economic considerations about the comparatively tiny sector. A Greenpeace initiative wants to ban factory ships more than 100 meters in length from British waters that are particularly rich in biodiversity. In all likelihood, those affected will end up talking about treason, like a foghorn from the Brexit foreman Farage. The trade expert Shankar Singham, a government confidant, sees a possible compromise because the kingdom needs foreign fishermen in its waters. In fact, the small British fishing fleet could not even exhaust any more generous quotas for the 100 or so fish species under discussion, and so they would be sold off again. Conversely, the continental bordering the English Channel and other important fishing nations, such as Spain and Portugal, need a longer transition period. In the end, Singham believes that both sides must be able to declare a victory. Well, knowing Johnson, if there is a deal in the end, he will get something from the EU because they offered a lot of compromises before, even if many Brexiteers deny that. And whatever he's got, he will make a big victory out of that. We know him for all these years and we know he will do it, and you know he can do it. Similar to fishing, Sam Lowe from the London think tank CR sees government aid as a viable option. Brussels had moved away from the maximum requirement that state aid should be handled and sanctioned as before. Now there's only talk of London's own rules having to serve the same goal. How this can be monitored without involving the European Court of Justice, the ECJ, which Brexiteers hated, is likely to be one of the remaining difficulties. But once again, the EU made tons of compromises during these negotiations since March. Nobody seems to have noticed from the Brexiteer sides, otherwise even Brexit channels are claiming there have been no compromises from the EU all that time. That's a frickin' lie. And if you are fed up now with politics and don't want to see politics all day, visit me on my new German channel here. Don't worry, you don't have to speak German for that, you don't have to understand German for that. There are automated English subtitles, automated, so don't mind the language, but the videos explain themselves anyway. You don't have to understand a word, just visit me there. And if you now want to see more about European or global politics, YouTube has chosen another of my videos right here in the end screen. I'll see you on my new channel or in my next video. Click and enjoy. Viel Spaß! If you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe, click the little bell and the notifications so you won't miss my new Brexit videos in the future.